welcome to CrossPoint Online. I'm Tina.
And I'm Tina. Or I could be Tiffany or Kimberly.
We don't know. There's a name tag. That's who we are.
Yes. Good morning and welcome everybody and our online viewers in East End and Augusta. And if you are a first-time guest, drop a comment, let us know, or get on the app.
Yeah. And we want you to share the stream. There is no better way to invite your friends than to just hit that share button, whether you're on Facebook, the website, however you're watching us, hit that share button, invite your friends. No better way to invite friends to church.
Yes.
Next week is Baptism Sunday, and so we've been talking about this for the past couple weeks. We're really excited. So next week we will only have one service time of 11:30. We'll still rebroadcast it at 7. So next week for you guys online, don't come here at this time because we won't be here.
I might be here.
Well, I'll be here, but we won't be streaming yet. So only at 11:30 and 7 next week will we have service times. And don't worry, we're going to be sending out tons of reminders this week to remind everybody, and probably even one Sunday morning.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So I got some jokes. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Don't read them. Philip.
Philip who?
Philip, my bag with Halloween candy. Okay.
Hold on.
What?
You just went to Salem.
I did.
Do we have anybody joining us from Salem? What's the likelihood?
Jennifer,
0%.
Is Jennifer Boone home?
Well, maybe.
I mean,
I was going to say 0% chance. Wherever you're joining us from, drop a comment below. We have a 0.005% chance somebody's joining us from Salem, Massachusetts.
I forgot
Who
the
knew?
door hangers on my trip. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
10
What
seconds.
do you call a wolf who knows what's going on?
What?
A werewolf.
Okay.
A where?
All right. Well, we're going to go straight into the service. Enjoy worship.
Good morning, everybody. We're so glad you guys decided to join us here at CrossPoint. Whether you're online or with us here in person, East End or Robinson County, we invite you guys to stand and sing with us this morning as we worship. When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is the mountain, you see a mountain moved. When as I walk through the shadows, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. Let's sing this together this morning. When I fight, so when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. You are for me, who can be against me? Jesus, there's nothing. For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you in every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you in every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you in every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet, I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Man, let's lift up a clap of praise to him this morning. I am weary from the waves crashing over every day. God of mercy, please come rescue me. I am longing for your voice, a gentle whisper in the noise. Father, tell me everything's alright. Yeah, your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough. Sing this together, you alone. You we sing this last song together this morning. This song about God being bigger than we can imagine that He is, bigger than our any hope or dream we have. He's so much bigger than that. I invite you guys to sing this song as a prayer, declaring to God that He's bigger than anything standing in between us and Him. He's bigger than that. He can knock that wall down. So let's say this as a prayer to Him. Let's throw our cares before Him this morning as we worship. Speak to me when the silence steals my voice. You understand me. You understand me. Come to me in the valley of unknowns. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. Hey. Sing this together. I believe, but help my unbelief, 'cause you understand me. You understand me. Help me reach, help me reach the faith that's underneath, 'cause you understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought.
Good morning. I want to welcome everyone that's joining us from Robertson County in person, online, and at Easton. We're so glad that you are with us this morning. If you're a first-time guest, you can let us know at the CrossPoint Now app or at the welcome table in the lobby. And if you are a first-time guest, we will make a donation in your name to a local charity. Our mission here at CrossPoint is to lead people to be passionate followers of Christ. We have a few steps that you can take to help you with your walk in faith. We have a starting point class, and this is an 8-week class that guides you through the Bible and helps you see where you are in God's story. Our Kid XP ministry is having our trick or treat tour, which you can either sign up to help us with or bring your kids and invite your friends at one of our events in Maysville, Bracken County, or Augusta. Next week is our baptism celebration, so this Sunday is the last day you can sign up to be baptized for next week, October 24th. And to let you know, it is at Maysville and Augusta, but 11:30 only. Don't show up at 9:30 because we won't be here, so just don't show up. And then after the service, we'll have our chili cook-off, and we need 30 people to sign up for it. But I just want to give everyone a heads up. We only have a couple people signed up, but if you don't normally cook, don't let next Sunday be the first time. Chad has asked Angela to give the message today, so let's all encourage Angela as she comes up and gives the message.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this morning. And in Augusta, East End, and our online community, thank you all for joining us also. So I have been given the privilege this morning of giving the message, and I'm continuing our series on free fall, and I am talking about sufficient grace. And just about that video, I don't know how they still did that, because I would be scared to death, because the rope would not have been sufficient grace for me. So, so I want to kind of start off by talking about, have you ever found yourself following your own plan? Not God's, your plan. You know, you done got tired of God waiting on it. You know, you're impatient. And so you develop your own plan. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get ahead. You know, I'll ask God to help me out later once I get there. Let's say like a job position or opening right now, and it's you and another coworker, and you all are pretty compatible in your, abilities to do the job that you were trying to get, but they give it to the other person. And then to top it off, they want you to help them. What? And you're like, oh man, so then you got a smile on your face. I'm glad you got the job and I think you'll do great, but here I got to train you. So then you find yourself, your ego and pride get the best of us, don't they? And we get, sometimes for me, I know, even though I'm a grateful believer, I still have these times where my ego and pride get the best of me, and I get consumed with that, and I can't see what God's trying to get me to do. And so I often find myself in this struggle. And it's just hard to kind of understand what God's trying to show us. But one thing that I do know is that with sufficient grace, you have to learn to be content in your suffering. And that's hard. I mean, come on, Angela, you want us to be content in the suffering? But that's what God is asking us to do when he is talking about his sufficient grace. I mean, we all have weaknesses, and if you aren't careful, it may cause you to fall out of the will of God. And I can remember when Tammy Conrad was here and would Celebrate Recovery, and she was talking about how addiction is an idol. And I'm not just talking about drugs and alcohol. Those hurts, habits, and hang-ups that some of us don't like to talk about, those are addictions. Because whatever we put above our relationship with God, it separates us from him because we want that more. And so in that example I was giving you, that's really happened to me about wanting a job, a status more, and it separated me from God. And I fell off, and I would try to get back on with God, and then I would fall off again until he finally had me understand that my ego, my pride, being boastful, how many of us have been caught in the office gossip room or circle talking about that person that got that job, and all you could say was, y'all know they should have picked me because I was the better candidate. Well, look who they had to have train them. So why didn't they just give me the job? I'm pretty much doing the job anyway. That's not what God wants from us. But with, our ego and our pride, being boastful, having that team me mentality is what we tend to rely on instead of relying on God's sufficient grace. But you know what grace gives us? Grace gives us permission to fall or fail. See, that's where we get all confused. It's okay to fail or fall. And grace is the reason that we can get back up again and move forward. And this comes from God. 2 Corinthians 12, 6-9 says, even if I choose to boast, I would not be a fool, because I would be speaking the truth, but I refrain. So no one will think more of me than is warranted by what I do or say, or because of these surpassingly great revelations. Therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. So Paul is speaking here to the Corinthians and to us, not to boast in what we can do, but to thank God for his generosity in what we have been given. Sufficient grace means that you can quit feeling inadequate. We aren't perfect people, and we never will be in this life, which is hard for a people-pleasing, codependent, low self-esteem, depression, and anxiety type of person like me, because perfectionism is my thing. But what grace has shown me, that it doesn't matter if somebody has something negative to say about today. If one person comes to me after this message or messages me later from being online or something and says, Angela, your message spoke to me today, or God opened up my heart today because of what you said, then I know that by God's grace that I'm doing what he wanted me to do. But because God's grace is so much greater than our shortcomings, our failures, our weaknesses, our sinful desires, our self-image, or your hurts, habits, and hang-ups. This is what Ephesians 2:8-9 says. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not by the works, so that no one can boast. I'm sorry, my mouth is a little dry up here. That's called being nervous. So when I would be deep in my suffering or not being able to deal with the things that I was going through in my life, people would always come to me, and this would be like when I'm really upset and boo-hooing and crying and the ugly cry and snot bubbles are everywhere. And they would always say this to me: God's never going to put no more on you than you can handle. And after a while, I got tired of that. Like, what you mean? He ain't going to, I'm dying here, like I can't handle no more. Like, he picked the weakest person to put all of this on. What is going on, God? Why don't you like me? And I hated when people would say that to me. Like, even before they could get it out of their mouth, like, shh, don't even go there, Angie came out. And if you didn't want the business, you just kept on walking. And what I had to understand is that I was misunderstanding what he was trying, what the message that he was sending with someone else. I was misunderstanding how to take it. And what I've learned has become so vital in my journey of healing is to learn that a different perspective of something helps me out so much. And probably about a few weeks ago, God showed me what he was trying to say about that quote. And what I needed to understand is that we all have experienced some type of disappointment. But first, we have to learn that we're not alone in dealing with that situation. God has never left me alone, and he has never left you alone. He doesn't need our help in overcoming the situation of this trial or the storm. He wants our obedience. And that's a hard one for us. And when we believe this, truly believe it, we take away the enemy's power to deceive us. 1 Peter 5:8-9 says, "Be alert and of sober mind. The enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings." Family, how much has the enemy been on you this week, this last month? How about this morning? Let me tell you about the enemy this morning. I done got myself together. I'm going to give this message, and it's going to be the best that God's given me, I try to stop at Speedway and get some coffee. Leave the car running. The key's in there, ignition's on. Car's not supposed to lock, right? Because even if you lock it, it beeps. Message, your car is running. It won't lock. It won't lock. I leave my purse, my phone, the spare key in the car. Go in and get my coffee. Come out, the door is locked. I got 5 minutes to be here for our little rundown this morning. What am I going to do? I don't know nobody's phone number. I don't know anybody's phone number offhand but my mom's, and that was early to be trying to call her to come help me. What am I going to do, God? Not today, Satan. You don't get to have this today. So I'm running around looking for a rock because I'm going to break my window. Because I'm getting to church. Because I'm going to give this message whether you like it or not, Satan. And so there was a nice gentleman that stopped, and he helped me, and we broke the little window on my car so that I could get in. Y'all don't know. Y'all don't. If y'all only knew. And if we just remember what Paul was saying in the scriptures and how he asked God to remove that thorn from his flesh 3 times. And what was God's response? My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Friends, I have had a lot of storms and trials thrown my way. And if that would have happened probably even 2 years ago, I would have been sitting on the ground crying, and I give up. And I don't know what y'all would have done today. But what God has shown me is just been so much more. And if you're looking for that sufficient grace, look for it in God, look for it in the scriptures. We think we can sustain ourselves, and God's grace will pull us out of those hard times into greener pastures. That's what we think. But we have to remember, He will not always remove that thorn in our side, but His grace is all we need to conquer it. Thank you. As I close here, because this was a short message, because I'm sharing the stage here this morning with Jamie, and we both have been nervous. So, but as I close, I just want you all to know that we can have the victory, but it takes faith, patience, and doing the work necessary to get rid of those things controlling our lives. And that is why I am so passionate about Celebrate Recovery, because it teaches us to look at our hurts, habits, and hang-ups. And like I said, some of us just think of that as just being a chemical dependency or an alcohol addiction, but it's anything. And I'm codependent. I have low self-esteem, but yet here I am. This is me facing my fear. And God's grace gives me that because His grace is sufficient. And I don't have to worry about the enemy anymore, because he's going to come every day to bother me. We've been going through this for a long time, But I thank you all for your attendance. And at this time, I'm going to ask Jamie Whaley to come up and share his testimony with us.
Thank you, Angela. We can give her another round of applause, if you would. So good morning, everybody. I'm going to try the best I can to keep this within the time frame. But anybody that's written a testimony knows that 47 years is hard to squeeze into 15 to 20 minutes. But I'll do the best I can. The name Saul means great one, and the name Paul means little one. By changing one little letter, we can become great in the eyes of God. But it requires us to be little if we wish to be great. This is how Saul became St. Paul. The Bible says in James 4:10, "Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will lift you up." Being humble is much more important than being wise, because God doesn't need a proud mouth that speaks much, but a kind heart that listens. Fortunately for me, God doesn't use the perfect, or at least the ones who think they are. He uses the humble, the seemingly insignificant, the broken and misunderstood. He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Before I sat down to write my testimony a couple months ago, I told myself that I was going to make this more about God and less about me. I spent 7 hours straight on a Saturday afternoon writing down what I wanted to share. And when I put my pen down and read over what I had written, I knew it was back to the drawing board. Because at the end of the day, it was more about me and less about what God had done for me. I'm honored today to have the opportunity to share my testimony, but more importantly, to share with all of you a testament of the saving grace of an awesome and all-powerful God who changed my direction and has saved my life numerous times. When I reflect on how much my life has changed over the years, I can't help but think of the words to the song, Amazing Grace, because His grace truly is just exactly that. So I'm going to try this again. My name is Jamie, and I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ and a person in long-term recovery, which for me means that for today and for the last 9 years, I haven't felt the need or desire to have a drink of alcohol, which is no doubt a miracle. Thank you all. Appreciate it. But even though today I no longer have a physical addiction to or a mental obsession with alcohol, I still struggle at times with those things that led to my addiction in the first place. See, a lot of people, including myself, would have thought that alcohol was my problem, when in reality, alcohol was my solution. The real reason for my relationship with alcohol was because of my many insecurities, fear of failure, fear of rejection, anxiety, depression, self-doubt, control, and perfectionism, which alcohol at least temporarily would suppress. Today, I still struggle with many of those things at times, but I no longer turn to alcohol as a solution. My solution today is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. The 12 steps of recovery and the 8 guiding principles that are based on the Beatitudes have given me the tools needed to deal with life on life's terms without drinking. Those tools include things like coping skills, the importance of healthy hobbies, a balanced diet, exercise, downtime with God, sober support, meditation, self-awareness, acceptance, and surrender. I was born in Lexington, Kentucky, but for most of my life, I've lived right here in Maysville. Over the years, I've heard a lot of folks blame Maysville for many of their shortcomings, but in my humble opinion, Maysville isn't the problem. Although leaving Maysville may have helped some folks to get sober to fly straight, the truth is that geographic change does not equal recovery. You can't shake your shadow. You take you with you wherever you go. So truthfully, the only way out is to take a good look within. In other words, to work your own 12 steps of recovery, which are designed to get you connected with an all-loving and powerful God who can and will solve all your problems. And just so you all know, Celebrate Recovery and the 12 steps are not just for those who struggle with drugs and alcohol. In fact, that only makes up a third of us. The other 2/3 struggle with fear, anxiety, guilt, grief, shame, pornography, perfectionism, codependency, gambling, food addiction, etc. So if you struggle with any of these things, whether you like it or not, you're one of us. And I would love for you to join us on Thursday nights so you can find freedom from your own hurts, habits, and hang-ups. When I was a 15-year-old freshman in high school, my relationship with alcohol began. Little did I know that what started out as such innocent fun and just hanging out would eventually take over my life completely. Growing up, I always believed in and had a relationship with God. At times, I didn't feel as close to Him, but that wasn't because He moved away from me. It was because I had moved away from Him. Backing up some, I was born to and raised by 2 wonderful, hardworking, and loving parents, J.T. and Bernadine Gallanstein Whaley. I have 3 amazing sisters, Tammy, Laura, and Sarah, a beautiful 21-year-old daughter, Abigail, and a thoughtful, loving, and supportive wife, Carmen. I do at this time anyway. I attended St. Patrick's Grade School and high school and graduated in 1992. I attend St. Patrick's Church and also attend services here at CrossPoint. Pastor Chad, the folks at CR, and you guys have really made me feel like I belong. And I'm grateful for the love and support. Unlike some who have given testimonies, I had a great upbringing and family life. Far from perfect, but I always had the love and support of my mom and dad and 2 wonderful grandparents, Leroy and Margaret Gallanstein, who not only raised 16 of their own kids, but also had a hand in raising myself, my sisters, and a multitude of my cousins. I was blessed to have 4 fine Christian examples in my life. But at the end of the day, while each of our stories are different, much of the pain, regret, sadness, and loneliness that we have experienced in our lives have been similar. This is what bonds us and why we understand each other so well. Never underestimate the collective power of the words "me too." The faces and voices of recovery are speaking out, telling our stories, and are living proof that we do recover. As many of us can probably say, I have had no clue how much my parents sacrificed until I became one myself. They did without and never tried to keep up with the Joneses, so my sisters and I would have all that we needed and a lot of what we wanted. Notice I didn't say all because they also wanted us to learn the value of hard work, dedication, honesty, integrity, and the importance of being kind to and helping others. As I said, I come from a very large family, the Gallansteins. and also the Whaleys. So I never had to worry about having someone to run around or goof off with. Although my younger years were full of great memories, there were some that were not so great and no doubt led to some of my insecurities. Without pointing any fingers or giving any real details, I will just say I was called some pretty hurtful names, and I also had a coach that was extra hard on me. He later would tell me that it was because of the potential that he saw in me, and I can appreciate that now, but just a heads up, name-calling and bullying does hurt and leaves behind scars. And coaches, every player on a team is different. Part of your job is to get to know each player and how best to motivate and encourage them without crushing their spirits. Many of my younger years were spent trying to fit in. But as I've gotten older and wiser, I've learned that God's plan for me is not to fit in, but to stand out. He calls me his son and tells me that I am created in his image and likeness. So getting back to high school, when I discovered alcohol, I finally felt like I had found the answer to my insecurities, my fear of failure and rejection, and self-doubt. When I would drink, I felt more comfortable with who I was. I had more confidence. I felt more equal, and I could simply live in the moment. You see, much of my life has been either in fast forward, worrying about what tomorrow may bring, or in rewind, beating myself up over mistakes I had and have made. Alcohol finally, at least temporarily, put me in play mode or the present moment. The older I got, the more I depended on alcohol as a crutch, as my dad called it, and the more my disease of alcoholism would progress. I eventually graduated high school with a mediocre 3.23. I'd played 4 sports in high school and was a member of the National Honor Society. Back then, I was satisfied with being pretty good, but never pushed myself to reach my full God-given potential. Today, I believe that anything in life is worth putting your heart and soul into. I have learned to give God my best and nothing less, and to leave it all on the court. At the end of the day, we won't be judged for what we accomplished, but how hard we tried. After high school, I would attend Maysville Community College and also Northern Kentucky University, where fear, insecurities, anxiety, and alcohol would continue to haunt me. Only 32 credit hours short of my bachelor's degree, I would quit school and begin my bartending career. Not exactly the best job for an alcoholic, but that's where I found myself at the age of 21. I was always mainly a beer drinker, but eventually I would acquire a taste for and an obsession with liquor, which would eventually lead to my first of 2 rock bottoms. Everyone's rock bottom is different. My first rock bottom was at the age of 28. After 13 years of drinking, I was forced to seek medical care from my cousin, Dr. Gollenstein. At that time, my eyes were yellow, my skin was gray, I was experiencing dizzy spells, alcohol-induced panic attacks, my blood pressure was highly elevated, my liver enzymes were through the roof. You would think that going to jail in Brown County for hitting a car full of people in Aberdeen as a result of driving drunk and blowing a .22 should have been a wake-up call and a rock bottom. But as I said, everyone's is different. So on May 10th, which happens to be my sister Tammy's birthday, in the year 2002, my body decided that I needed to quit drinking. I was put on Klonopin for 2 weeks to ease my withdrawal symptoms and anxiety medication for 3 months. By the grace of God, I was able to stay what I later found out was dry, not really sober, for 8 years. I was no longer drinking, but I was bitter and resentful because the rest of the world could have fun and drink, but I couldn't. I had admitted that I was powerless over alcohol and that my life had become unmanageable, but I wasn't happy nor could I accept it. My reason for giving up alcohol that first time was more of a have to or need to because of my health. A relapse 8 years later, around August of 2010, would change my reason and mindset into a want to be sober, which is where I am today and why I've been able to maintain my sobriety for the last 9 years. That 2-year relapse was a result of me not fully surrendering myself and my life to God, not working a program, trying to do it all on my own, not giving back, on top of convincing myself that if I could quit drinking for 8 years, that maybe I'm not really an alcoholic. That decision to allow myself 3 beers, a Bud Light, and a Little King would, I remember that like it was yesterday, would quickly snowball into my second rock bottom. Up until that point, I always thought of myself as a functioning alcoholic. But at the end of my run, I could no longer function. I missed 3 days of work trying to get and stay well. I was no longer drinking to have fun or to relieve stress. At this point, I was in survival mode. But honestly, my relapse would become my saving grace because I finally turned it all over to God. Not some of it, but all of it. Sometimes God has to put you flat on your back to get you to look up. And that's exactly what I did. I asked Him to step into my life again, humbled myself before Him, and once again He lifted me up. I firmly believe that when I went to sleep on September 11, 2012, God stepped in and rewired my brain so I no longer was physically addicted to or mentally obsessed with alcohol. So on September 12, 2012, which just happens to be my sister Laura's birthday, I woke up a serene and sober man, and by the grace of God have been able to stay that way at least for today. I bartended at Ye Olde Dutch Inn. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. I bartended at Ye Olde Dutch Inn for a total of almost 25 years. 7 drinking, 8 sober, 2 more drinking, and 8 more sober. The first few part-time, then roughly 17 full-time, and another 5 there toward the end on a part-time basis. Bartending once was my passion, and I had dreams of being a bar owner, but God had other plans. I did very well and feel like I was pretty good at bartending. I had a great boss and friend in Mr. Steve Haggard, was well compensated, learned a lot about myself, met a lot of good people, also some not so good people, and learned some life lessons along the way. Eventually, God would decide that my season of bartending, at least full-time, had come to the end. Next season of growing, God would lead me to a job as a quality inspector at Wald LLC, or as some call it, the bicycle factory. I should have been thankful that the bosses took a chance on a guy with no factory experience, but instead I was ungrateful and resentful of my blessing. The lady that trained me, Miss Marilyn Shoemaker, was a godsend. She was patient, understanding, knowledgeable, and remembered what it was like to be the new hire. Had it not been for her and God, I would have never made it past that first week. For 3 years and 7 months, I dragged myself out of bed and complained about my job that would have been a 5-year goal for some. The Possets and almost everyone I worked with were good to and patient with me. Finally, after 3 years and 7 months, I decided to go a different route. I told my wife that I was no longer going to complain about my job, but that I was going to be grateful for what God had given me, learn as much as I could, and trust in and submit to God's plan for my life, which I know because of the words in Jeremiah 29:11 are plans to prosper, not harm me. 2 months later, I would get an offer to come to work at the Buffalo Trace District Health Department as harm reduction and now peer support specialist, overseeing and growing their syringe access and exchange program. I now get the opportunity to fulfill what has become my new passion and all along God's purpose for my life, which is making a difference in the lives of those that struggle as I once did and still do in other ways. Our vision statement at the health department is a healthy community for everyone, and I get the privilege of contributing to those efforts through connection, understanding, and compassion. I also get the opportunity to practice Celebrate Recovery's 12th step, which is having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps. We try to carry this message to others and practice these principles in all our affairs. I get to do this on a daily basis, which helps me in my recovery as well. Speaking of Celebrate Recovery, approximately 10 months ago, I was inspired by a still small voice to inquire about CR. So I reached out requesting some information on Facebook, and a friend of mine tagged Kevin Orms, who provided me the information that I needed. At that time, the pandemic had shut down our Monday night AA meetings. When I first started going to CR, I felt like I was in a pretty good place in my recovery. But truth be told, I really didn't even understand what true recovery looked or felt like. One Thursday, I picked up one of the blue cards that list all the reasons that people should come to CR, which this is a blue card, and feel free, everybody, to pick one up in the back. I noticed that it checked off more of my boxes than I care to admit. Only then did I realize, or did I really make the connection that I would have to take on my hurts, habits, and hang-ups in order to have a chance at true peace, contentment, serenity, and sustained sobriety. I believe another grace from God is when Kevin invited me to do a step study. I'd been sober or dry from May 10th, 2002 to August of 2010, and again from September 12, 2012 until today, but had never really taken the time to work my own 12 steps of recovery, which again are not just for those who struggle with drugs and alcohol. These steps will help you no matter your struggle. In working my 12 steps and looking inward, I have gained an understanding of my relationship with alcohol and why I am how I am and who I am. I've been able to forgive myself for the pain I've caused others in the past. I've learned to be quick to forgive others and to let go of resentments. I've learned that there are very few things that I'm in control of. I've learned that God's grace is sufficient. I've learned to wait on God because He's always on time, to remain humble, that God doesn't need or expect me to be perfect, and not to be anxious about tomorrow, but to make the most of today. I want to encourage everyone who needs freedom and healing from whatever it is that you struggle with to give Celebrate Recovery a chance. We truly are one big happy family. I'd like to leave you guys with some powerful and encouraging words from Jim Caviezel, who was asked to play the role of Jesus in The Passion of Christ. He says, your name may not appear down here in this world's Hall of Fame. In fact, you may be so unknown that no one knows your name. The Oscars and the praise of man may never come your way, but don't forget God has rewards that He'll hand out someday. This crowd on earth will soon forget when we're not at the top. They will cheer like mad until you fall, and then their praise will stop. But not God. He never does forget, and in His Hall of Fame, by just believing in His Son, forever there's your name. I'll tell you, friends, I wouldn't trade my name, however small. It's written there beyond the stars in that celestial hall. For all the famous names on earth, the glory that they share. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd rather be an unknown here and have my name up there. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Means a lot. This is first time doing anything like this.
Just want to thank Jamie for sharing his testimony, because that's not easy, and especially when you grow up here in Maysville and people know your family and stuff, it's not easy to come up here and talk about those things that trouble us the most. So before I close out the service today with a prayer, I want to personally invite everyone out this Thursday evening to celebrate recovery. We are celebrating 3 years. And we're just wanting to celebrate everything that the ones who started it and where we are now, and that we just keep flourishing. So we've got new times now. So our meal starts at 6 o'clock, and then our actual program starts at 6:30. So please come out and join us this Thursday. And like Celebrate Recovery, I'm going to end today, it's not nighttime, sorry. I'm going to end today with a serenity prayer, because it covers so much. So if you will say the serenity prayer with me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. Thank you all.